killed anybody. If there is a God, I'm there. I've got to be there. Well, what I was learning is that there's Dave's standard, and then there was what I was learning is God's standard. God expects perfection. Guys, I want to tell you, there's not just a little bit of wiggle room. I mean, there's a ton of wiggle room in my standard. Well, February 19th, 2009, not even 2 years ago, God showed up in my life. That week before, I had taken literally those 2 questions and a few others, I had taken those and really distilled them down into one thing. And I remember asking, God, if you're here, help me understand how I could ever possibly believe if I fear. Be prepared when you ask God a question and He takes it as a challenge, He's probably going to show up. He did for me. It was a week later. We're going through John chapter 9. And as we're going around and we're working through that chapter 1, I remember the fear of the people. You know, number two, I remember one of the guys in the group, Andy. Andy read 9, 6, and 7. And Jesus spat on the ground, made mud with saliva, rubbed it across the blind man's eyes, and told him, go wash in the pool of Siloam. That man did, and he came back seeing. That morning, I had a meeting here in town, and then I had a road trip away, a drive away out of town. And God lined up a series of events. I want to tell you, it wasn't 1, it wasn't 2, it wasn't 3, it wasn't 4. It was a series of events, too many that you could ever call coincidental. A series of events that when I finally saw, finally got my attention, it's God revealed. I want to tell you, I'm an engineer. Like I told you, I'm an engineer by trade. I take things, I break it apart. I continue to ask the golden question, why? That morning I got to the why. The why was God revealed. I saw that, and every one of the events before that lined up, made sense. You know, every one of them. You can't take those lightly. You know, that morning, on of all places, Siloam, Georgia, population 300. My business is cities. And I didn't know about Siloam, Georgia. But on the road towards Siloam, Georgia, I bowed my head. I prayed to God. I asked for His forgiveness. I asked Him to be my Lord, my Savior. That was a big day for me. A huge day for me. I felt not only the weight of the world off my shoulders, the weight I put on myself, my business, the families in my business, my families, all of that was gone. But I'm made to do. I wanted to know what's next. I really wanted to know what's next. And I reached out. And I got some great advice. I mean, I got some really good advice. I got involved with a group, and I'd also took the first piece of advice, which was take a one-on-one trip with each family member, give them you. I did that. Done it ever since. My oldest son was 14 at the time. His name's Jeremy. God really used him to show what's wrong in my life. I mean, wrong. So we're in our house, we're in our kitchen, just me and him. And I want to tell you a little bit about him. He's just like me. We're cut from the same cloth. There's no doubt about it. Assertive, driven, A-type personality. Everything's a competition. There's only one option, win, right? So I'm in the kitchen with him, and I ask him, Jeremy, let's get away. Anywhere you want to go, anything you want to do. He didn't even look at me. His response, I don't know. I want to tell you, when a driven person is given a free ticket for anything they want to do, and they say, I don't know, I want to translate. That means I don't care about doing this with you. Let's take it a step further. I don't care about doing this with you, Dad. Well, I tend to be assertive, so I pushed. Wasn't a good thing. Next thing I know, he's standing, he's shouting, he's pointing. You're going to do whatever you want to do. Rare moment, but I didn't have anything to say. I didn't know what to say. Here's what he did. He summed up pretty quickly who this was about, what it was about, who it was for, and he didn't see it having anything to do with him. I talked with my wife that night about it. She came up with a great idea. He loves football. He loves it. He loves the Florida Gators. She came up with a great idea. We've never been to the Florida-Georgia game. Take him to the Florida-Georgia game. Next morning, I was so excited I had to tell him quick, right? Next morning, I go to him. I'm like, Jeremy, let's go to the Florida-Georgia game. Guys, it was a smile this big. It was huge. Now I had the problem of getting the tickets. Listen, I scrambled to get those tickets. I was going to buy those tickets. I paid way more. They were great seats. I paid way more for those tickets than I ever should have. I wasn't going to fly down. I wanted one-on-one, just me and him time. We drove. That's a six and a half hour drive, guys. That's the longest drive I have ever taken in my life, ever. I want to tell you, he had these earbuds in his ear. We didn't talk. We didn't say one word. We did not talk the whole way. Listen, I'm praying. God, give us this time. We get to Jacksonville, God didn't deliver. Tons of people, large crowd. He's warming up to the people around him. There's some crazy people at these games. So anyway, he's warming up to the crowd around him, and he enjoys the game. Florida wins. He's happy. The next day, we're driving back, and he's got those earbuds in again. This trip's ending. I'm praying hard. 2 hours into the trip, he does pull the earbuds out. And we start to talk. We start to talk. I want to tell you, the last 4 hours of that trip, I'll trade for nothing. Nothing. A year later. This was a year later. That was the start of the repair of our relationship. A year later, we're at Father's Day. Imagine this, of all places. We're at Maggiano's on Father's Day. And actually, I think it was where one of the guests went, the one in Buckhead. So we're at Maggiano's, and he looks across the table from me. Dad, you're not angry anymore. Missing his games. Being too quick to tell him no because it's inconvenient for me. Putting him in a box tells him his dad's angry at him. I wasn't angry. I was focused on me. I love my son. Let's shift gears a little bit. My company. Like I said, the company's 10 years old. Throughout the past few years, I run hard. People know that. It's burned a lot of people out. This was a few months ago, one of the top guys on my team leaves. I pull my team together. Hey guys, what am I missing? What's going on? Well, I got a lot of feedback. I got a ton of feedback. I want to tell you, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. It wouldn't have been my problem. It would have been his. I'd have just wrote it off. I'd have kept moving forward. I'd have explained it away. I'd have kept running. So a few things. One is, I want to ask you, I've been asked this too, what's changed in my life? Guys, what's changed in my life is I've met Jesus. I'm working toward a relationship. My heart, my focus, my motives, my business, my friends, my family. Relationships. Yes, I'm driven. I'm driven hard. I'm telling you right now, I'm just as driven today as I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. When there's a fork in the road, guess what I do? I take it. I go after it. Right? You know, I also believe this room right here, this room has driven personalities in it. I'm going to bet that each and every person in this room came here today for a purpose. We're all driven. That's how we're made. But here's the difference today versus 2 years ago. I see every opportunity in my life as a blessing. And I actually see them as God's blessing. I didn't see that 2 years ago. I see it today. That's how I got to where I am today. God's used every one of these events throughout my life to get me prepared for where I am today. And I don't know what's going to turn into tomorrow. I personally now see in my private life, my business life, my spiritual life, all intertwined as one. No separate islands, no separate boxes. But I want to tell you this, I do get involved with like-minded groups to learn, to grow, to share. These groups are contributing to my success in business, personal. And I want to tell you there's some very cool people and organizations here in our Atlanta technology community. Priority Associates is one of those. They offer these types of events to get involved with like-minded groups to grow. One of these groups are discovery groups. And I want to let you know, don't do today what I did 2 years ago, which is leave here and get back to just getting it done. Think about what that next step is going to be. Think about what that next fork in the road is going to be and take it. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming.